Jordan. He completed his bachelor in fiqh and MA, Masters in Political Science from University of Jordan. Then he completed his PhD from Ankara Yildirim Beyazıt University in Political Science and Public Administration. Now he is visiting fellow in Oxford University, and he was the director of Foreign Affairs in the Institute of Islamic Thought in Ankara, and he worked many projects in there with big scholars and prominent scholars from all around the world. Now, it's our series lecture or series class. Our Ustaz Yusuf Al-Quraishi will give us a series class on history of political philosophy. You may become so free. He is like our big brother, though he is Quraishi. You can also take bayah from him because he is a Quraishi and he has legal authority to be Khalifa. So, please start.
Okay. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعه ومن والاه. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا ويسر لنا الخير كله يا كريم. I would like to extend my many thanks to my brother Burhanuddin. What he said is from his perspective. That does not mean that it is true, but I am nevertheless thankful that he thinks that way. Burhanuddin is a true brother, and we spent many years together working on different projects. And I am sure that those who work with him will see how much of a true knowledge seeker he is. And I am sure, inshallah, that one day he will leave his, I would say, footprint on the knowledge scene. Maybe not just in Bangladesh or the Indian subcontinent, but in other places too. I would like to start by just sharing the screen, if I may. Just a second. Yeah. So I know that the issue of the history of political thought is one of the subjects that a lot of people like to get into, but in the same time, it's very repetitive. And that is because we always speak about politics. We always speak about politicians, and we always speak about political thought, whether we want it or not, or whether we know it or not. So when someone say that we're going to discuss the history of political thought, for example, one would assume that we are going to discuss certain ideas that we're going to speak about communism, capitalism, liberalism, maybe Islamism, maybe. So it's the history of political thought from that perspective is very narrow, because the history of political thought really is history of humanity overall. Because we as humans, we became in the shape and in the qualities we are today because of our political context. And when I say political, I don't mean governments per se. I mean different things. And we're going to speak about this today. So I would like to say before I start that this course, I don't know how much will take us, like 7, 10 lectures. Let's hope for the best. It's an introduction to political thought, political philosophy, political theory. We're going to get into the difference between those three. But in the same time, we are going to speak about ourselves. We are going to speak about the like Muslims and Africans and like Europeans, but overall, we are speaking about our story. And our story is a story of humans going in a certain direction. That direction is uh, characterized by different answers to pretty certain questions. And these questions are these questions are the core of what your political thought or political philosophy is. That is why, with that in mind, the first question with which I would like to start is the difference between the history of political philosophy and the history of apolitical philosophy. In most of our universities, and I speak from someone who is an Arab or Jordanian. I lived and studied political science in Jordan. Then I studied political science in Turkey, and now I'm dealing with political theory and political science in the UK and in the Western world. I would say that most of what we deal with as a history of political philosophy is a history of apolitical philosophy, which is like one direction of political philosophy. So sometimes we speak about just a second. I want to stop. Yes. So sometimes when we say that we are going to start understanding political philosophy, we start with the Greeks, we start with Plato, we start with Aristotle, we start with, but this is a very bad start to study political philosophy. And that is because we take a certain direction. We say that we are going to study political philosophy, the political philosophy, but in the reality of things, we are studying the Western political philosophy. Even if we are studying, I would say, we want to study the Indian subcontinent, or we want to study Muslim heritage or Muslim culture regarding political philosophy. We study it, or they study it, and we are taking the same route which they have taken. They study it on the margin. Like we're speaking about this kind of a line, and we have people on the side. So we don't study Ibn Sina, we don't study Farabi, we don't study Al-Kindi, we don't study Ibn Rushd, unless it has something to do with the Western political line of philosophy. So we study how did the Muslims or Arabs or Persians or whoever did convey the knowledge that led to the Western advancement, or the we study a very so like Ibn Rushd, Farabi, and we study those figures to say how did, for example, the Enlightenment happened in in Southern Europe. So we speak about the effect, what they did, convoy, what the we treat them as, I'm sorry for this concept, but I heard it from one of the professors and I liked it very much. We treat the Muslim culture as a mule. So it's just a case in which the Hellenistic ideas were carried out, and then we took it and we just delivered it to the Renaissance people who are in the same time delivered it into the rest of Europe. So when we study the history of political philosophy, we should be really concerned not to fall in that trap. That being said, that being said, we should not fall in the other trap, which is to study to marginalize Western political thought because they have done the same thing for us. So we would say that no, we're not going to study Western political thought at all. We are going to study fiqh siyasa sharia. We are going to study our philosophers' contributions, but we are not going to go into the Western point of view. And even if we find something beneficial in the Western point of view, we try very hard to say that its origin came from us. So everything that happened in the West happened because of us, and the overall problems that we are facing today happened because of the West. So these are two different traps. So when we want to study political philosophy or political thought, we are going to get into the West, of course, because some of the main texts, some of the main figures in political thought and the advancement of political thought are Europeans per se. When you say, by the way, when you say Greek, when you say Roman, at that time, the European identity was not clear. So those are Mediterranean. So when you speak about the Greeks at that time were studying in Alexandria. They had trade routes with Phoenicia, which is in today Lebanon and Palestine. The Phoenician people, of course, and with Carthaginians, of course, you have the Romans and the famous war with the Carthaginians, and so the issue is that those cultures are not per se European as we understand them today. They used to be Mediterranean cultures because the world went around two seas at that time. First the Mediterranean and then the Indian Ocean. Those are the two main waterfronts with which the trade routes were happening, the wars were happening. So we can't say European per se. That being said, again, we are going to deal with all of them. We're not going to neglect the Greeks and the Romans, of course, but in the same time, we are going to try to contextualize them. We're going to put them in the place which they deserve. We're not going to be part of المطففين الذين إذا اكتالوا على الناس يستوفون وإذا كالوهم أو وزنوهم يخسرون. المطففين is a concept not just in trade, not just in commerce, but of course in the world of thought too. So what is the difference between the history of political philosophy? What's the difference between political philosophy, political thought, and political theory? Well, the answer to this truly is a part of a huge debate. One can say that those three are the same thing, and you wouldn't be that much in the wrong when you say this, because most of them are speaking about the same thing when it comes to the common man. Like when someone in the street say that I believe in that political philosophy, maybe he's speaking about a certain ideology. Maybe he is speaking about a certain idea in politics, but he says this is my political philosophy. He's not wrong. But when it comes to the field of study, I like one can say that philosophy is the overall framework. So philosophy contains different things, and a political philosophy is a part of the overall philosophy. Political theory is an academic field in which we study political philosophy within the context of political science. So it's a kind of an academic department. When you go into academic departments, you study political theory as a political scientist who wants to study political philosophy. So it's kind of a systematic understanding of political philosophy. Political thought is a general non-academic word. So when we say political thought, we mean every idea that has something to do with the political, with the political. So what is the political أو السياسي? What is the political? Of course, politics, you can, of course, I'm not going to get into some of the ideas that you can read. Anyway, I'm going to try to together to reframe what we know about politics in order to, because today is the introductory lecture. So when we go into the history of political thought, we are going, or philosophy, we are going to understand on about what exactly are we speaking. So politics, in short, are the affairs of the city. It comes from polis. So city in that sense, of course, it started in the city. Why? Because the humans started having this problem with power within the norms of a city. City does not mean per se a big town which has walls and no. City is a place where different human groups live together. And when different human groups live together, we have different interests, we have different objectives, we have different ideas on what is right and what is wrong. So we started dealing with this conflict. So those affairs would include how to run the city, which means, of course, who does or gets what, where, and how. So that's what led, of course, and the last century for David Easton to give this very good understanding of what politics is as a field and are as acts, which is the authoritative allocation of value. Authoritative allocations of value, or the التوزيع السلطوي للقيم. What does that mean? Values is everything that one humans value. So, for example, water is a value, money is a value, gold is a value, but then respect is a value, obedience is a value, uh, controlling the trade routes is a value. And so when you have the power to allocate, to give someone the authority to control this value, you have the overall power uh, uh, to navigate what we call navigate the conflict. What does that mean? That means that the overall idea of politics and the political is we need to understand how exactly are we going to allocate the values. So every one of these philosophers who are going to come later, inshallah, during the course of the next month or two, is going to try to answer this question. So the political, by the way, political and the political is a like the political is a different concept regarding what do we call. So, for example, is sitting a political act or not? Is eating a political act or not? Of course, there's the ethical, there is the moral, there is the sociological, there's the economic. So, what is the political? So, the political is, as for the description that we have above, is any act or thought related to that allocation, the allocation of values. So, any act or thought that would have an effect, certain effect on the authoritative allocation of values would be considered a political. So the most important character of the political is power. But what is power exactly? What is power exactly? Power is the ability to influence the result of a conflict by either forcing a desired result, rearranging the elements of the conflict, or changing the basis upon which a conflict is resolved through direct or indirect means. This definition of power is a comprehensive understanding of power that I used in my PhD thesis. It's based on multiple definitions of power, and I would argue that it is a very comprehensive one because it does not leave out any type of power. So power, first of all, is an ability, but it's not an abstract ability. It's an ability to influence. But power does not have any meaning without a context of conflict. What is a conflict? Let's just go for another slide. What is conflict? Conflict is a very simple issue, but it can mean many things. Conflict is different parties seeking different outcomes. This is all. Of course, if you open your Wikipedia, if you get into some of the conflict resolution books, you will find 100 understanding of what conflict is. But simply put, conflict is a situation in which you will have different parties, like different people, groups, different governments, different cities, who want different things. So how can we decide the outcome of that conflict? The main decider, or I would say the overall decider of what will the outcome would be is power. Now, the power can be by either forcing a desired result. So that can be physical, that can be like economical, that can be something related to kinship. So, for example, if you are in a family, the father has a certain power. That power resolves conflicts and sometimes initiate conflicts, but he gives a decision. That decision is enforced. Enforced by what? It can be enforced by the just a look by the father. It can be enforced by some shouting. It can be enforced with sometimes physical force, right? But nevertheless, it is a forcible decision and a forcible result, a forcible desired result that the father wanted. So this is the first thing you can. It's, I think they call the three tiers or the three circles of power. First is to force a desired result. The second is rearranging the elements of the conflict. Rearranging the elements of the conflict, which means let's go back to the father uh, metaphor. So let's say that we have a family dinner and the father is deciding who sits where, right? So if you have elements, you have the element of time, you have the elements of the guests, you have the elements of this and that. So sometimes the father would say, for example, let's have the dinner on Friday. Why? Because he knows that a certain someone is not going to be in the house on Friday. So he went and came back with the same desired result without force. He rearranged the elements of the conflict itself. So at that day, the father will not be there. That guy is not going to be there. So there's not going to be a conflict, or the conflict is going to be very simple to solve. The third is the changing the basis upon which a conflict is resolved, which is most of what the modern governments are doing. So setting the agenda, you are uh, changing the laws of elections, for example. Maybe some of you heard of what you call in American politics, and it became like a global thing, gerrymandering. Gerrymandering is a long story, but the thing is that you have, for example, a state or a county in America. So this is, sorry for the very elementary way of drawing. So you have this state, for example. If you did the just thing, you will have you have two seats in the county or the council, whatever. So you will have like 50% Republicans, 50% Democrats. So if you set the line here of the county, you will have two representatives. One of them is Democrat, and the other is uh, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, is the Republican, one Democrat. But with gerrymandering, we change the rules upon which the conflict is happening. So they say that this is not the electoral organizing of the state. We're going to do this. We're going to say that this this is a one electoral, it's like a country, and this is the other. So why do they do this? Because they know that they have the majority in these two places. So we will have two Republicans and not have any Democrats in that area. How? By gerrymandering. We're just changing uh, the borders of the certain county or the certain state, so they would get more votes according to the majority. So you can change the basis on which you, especially when it comes to laws, for example. So, for example, if there's a conflict about being a president, in the constitution, they wouldn't allow you to be a president for more than 2 terms. So you go to with your party to the parliament and you change the constitution. So you change the basis upon which the conflict is resolved. Of course, that can happen in a direct or the indirect manner. That includes, by the way, the power of uh, agenda setting. which means that I have the power to set the things that people can discuss or not. So now we have in Europe, we have the idea of anti-Semitism. By law, you can't have any criticism regarding the any policy that goes under the anti-Semitism protection laws. And if you said anything, you're going to go to jail. So these things doesn't even get to the agenda of discussing. Uh, so the overall history of political theory and philosophy goes around these ideas, which is what we call the political problem, المشكلة السياسية, which is how to resolve the conflict between finite resources and infinite perspective. Finite, yeah, like we have a very fixed values and resources. We have one seat for a president, for example. We have, I don't know, 200 seats for parliamentaries. We have, like, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, we have certain amount of oil, we have certain amount of money, gold, whatever. So we do have finite resource, but we have infinite perspectives on how do we spend that money, who do we put as a president, how do we manage that. So all the philosophers that are going to come, inshallah, during the next weeks are going to try to resolve this issue. How do we reach a just, maybe, powerful, maybe, ethical, maybe, way to resolve the conflict between the finite resources and the infinite perspective. So, we're going to spend the next weeks, inshallah, trying to examine how the philosophers attempt on solving the political problem, which leads us to the very important aspect of what we are going to deal with during the next weeks, which is what we call the perennial questions of politics. الأسئلة الأبدية للسياسة. The perennial questions of politics are indeed the most important questions with which you can understand everyone's political philosophy. The most important of which is, for example, are humans good or evil by nature? So one would ask, why would the idea of humans being good or evil affect our political philosophy? And this is a very good question. According to your understanding of human nature, your political philosophy is going to change drastically. So let's go together and do some sort of a mental experiment. So let's assume, let each of you assume an answer for that. So put it in your mind. Say that I believe that humans in nature are good, or human by nature are evil. Of course, some of you would say that humans are not good or not evil, and they are the mix between the two. I would agree, but in the same time, you will need to put a standard on it. So if you leave humans alone, if you leave a certain person alone with no restrictions, with no legal system, with no ethical system, with nothing, how would that human or that group of humans would act? Are they going to do evil things? Are they going to kill each other when the first conflict happened? Or are they going to resolve things with each other? Are they going to spend their time building a civilization of art and I don't know, like equality and justice, or are they going to kill each other until, like what happened with our world during the last 10,000 years or something? So, good or evil, right? So, put that in your mind, pick your choice, your answer, and go with me with that time, with the coming timeline. Now, if you say that human beings are evil, the first thing that you would like to do because of them being evil to answer the political question or the to solve the political problem is to start putting restraints, right? Why? Because people are evil, so by nature, so we should put some sort of restraints, chains, so he would not go into the extent of being that much evil. So we know that he has this seed of evil, so we want to restrain him. So if you go with that line of thinking, you would understand why there's a lot of political philosophy trying as much as possible to put restraints on humans. We want legal system, we want strong government, we want strong army, we want strong police force. Why? Because humans are maybe evil. So we want to restrain them as much as possible. Because if you leave humans alone, they are going to kill each other. The second line of thinking is in humans being good by nature, righteous by nature. So your line of thinking when it comes to your political system or political philosophy, you are trying to get to a certain allocation of values that would allow that good human to reach his full potential or her full potential. So you will have this animosity. You will be an enemy to anything that would put restraints on human beings. So you would say humans are good, so let's allow them to reach their full potential. And reaching their full potential would not happen under a dictatorship. Would not happen under a system that would force them to do stuff. So we want to give them liberty. We want to give them freedom. And humans, because they are good in nature, are going to reach to a certain understanding alone without forcing them to do so. So notice how the idea of human being evil or good affects and at the end what you want from a political system. Of course, there is no true answer for this question. That is why we call them the eternal or the perennial questions of politics, because there's no one true answer. And even so, if you said that we have people who are evil, people who are good, how are we going to delve into such a situation? Are we going to do it be just to the good people by allowing them to do anything, and we are going to restrain the evil people? So if that is the case, how are you going to restrain those evil people? How are you going to choose who is evil, or decide who's evil and who is good in that context? So you will get, and because multiple systems said, for example, like he who is with a certain religion is good, the others are evil. Certain skin color, certain coming from certain continent are good, the rest are evil. So this is a perennial question. The second perennial question is do humans need community? Like, can we live? Do we live in communities because we need to live in communities, or we live in communities because we want to live in communities? This is a very important question because, again, if you believe that we need communities, we need big societies, we need a relationship between human beings as much as possible, and that is a positive issue, and that positive issue will lead to more positive things if we have a really good relationship. You are going to try to strengthen communities. You are going to try to um, like put laws into order to protect communities from dissolving, family, clan, city dwellers. So you anything that would force the community to go into danger, you're going to try to restrict it. But if you say that we want to live in communities, we don't need to live in communities, you wouldn't have any problem in deciding that your political philosophy, per se, would need a group of people. It can be done by an individual. That leads to the third one, which is it which is most important, which is the most important aspect? Is it the community's interest or is it the individual's interest? If you say it's an individual interest, you are going to go in a line of thinking that would lead into restraining community from getting into an individual interest in any way. But if you believe that the community is first, you're going to restrain the individual so he would not harm the communities. One of the other perennial questions is are human equal? This is a very, for someone who does not come from a religious background, especially a Muslim background, the idea of are humans equal is a very troublesome idea because why would they be equal? Like now, because of we are living in a like the contrary thought, the idea of humans being equal is a very common idea. But that was not the case throughout the human history. The idea of humans being equal, or the genders be, or the like the sexes being equal, or the slave and the slave owners being equal. This was not part of the overall human intellectual sphere. So is this is a very important question because again, if you believe that humans are equal deep inside you, you are going to try to enforce that in your philosophy. No, for example, if you are Plato and you believe that humans are not equal, so you would not let women into your city deciding mechanism. You're not going to let slaves. You're not going to let some of the people who are from outside of Greece or even outside of Athens to decide, even if they live there. They're not going to be allowed to decide. Some people, you would need people to own land, to have money in order to vote. So, are humans equal is a very important question. Is there any rights to humans? We always say now that we have human rights. Human rights are very important. Human rights are, but the idea of humans having rights is a very, I would say, recent idea. By birth is a very recent idea in human history. Because why would someone have rights by being born? It's not a logical issue. It's not something that comes with the human nature to give humans' rights just because they were born in a certain place. So, uh, in the span of the next weeks, inshallah, what we are going to do is we are going to try to go into different answers for these questions. We are going to get into the question of the origin of authority, inshallah, in political philosophy. We're going to speak about the three valleys in which the civilization started. We are going to speak about the Greek, Roman, Persian aspect of political philosophy. Of course, I said Persian because I might add Carthaginians too or Phoenicians, but I added the Persians because they happen to be in the same like sphere, and they had a lot of exchange of ideas between them. Then we are going to delve in the Christian tradition, of course, the Muslim tradition. When I say tradition here, I'm going to speak about historical ideas. Why? Because when I say the 17th, 16th century, 19th century, 20th century, I am going to speak about Muslims in that context. I'm not going to speak about them in a distinct context. Why? Because I have noticed that during the last 200 years, we have been dealing with Muslim intellectuals and Muslim philosophers in what I would like to call a depriving of context. Depriving of context. What does that mean? We treat our philosophers in two ways. The first way, we deprive them of the religious context. So we say someone, for example, the Kawakimi. So we go to Kawakibi, for example, and we try to understand his ideas of freedom, his ideas of what a proper government would be, and so and so. But at the same time, we deprive him understanding of being religious. So we say that he's sacrilege, he's was a kafir, he was murtad, and then. So we deprive him from his religious aspect. We say he's some sort of a secular intellectual. The second depriving of context is the depriving of context of the Muslim intellectuals and treating of the worldly context. We treat them as local intellectuals, local philosophers. So we go to Taha Abdurrahman, for example. We say he's like a Moroccan philosopher for Morocco and the Arab world. Go to Maududi and say he's like in that he's a just for he we treat him, we speak about him when we speak about the Indian subcontinent. We go into اللهم صل على محمد رشيد رضا والخطيب uh, اللهم صل على محمد Jamal Qasimi, or speak about Al-Afghani or Abdu, or we speak about them in the Egyptian context or the Shami context or the Indian subcontinent context or the Al-Khabili context or the Southeast Asia or Trans-Saxonia, the Central Asia context. But when we want to speak about Adam Smith, we don't speak of him as just someone who's from England and for England. We speak, or Scotland. We speak about him as someone who has the authority and the knowledge for the whole world. So even if you are studying in Jordan, for example, you would study Adam Smith, you would study John Locke, you would study Hobbes, but if you are studying in the UK, they would not teach you about our intellectuals as part of the world history, maybe on the margins, but they're not going to put it as a headline in the studies. So we are not going to do that, inshallah. We are going to study these intellectuals in the worldly context because we have the right to speak as everyone else. And that right is not a birthright. That is right because we have our ideas that deserve to be put on the intellectual sphere. And I believe that if we deal with our intellectuals and philosophers that way, we will give them a chance to grow. And we are going to give them the chance to be known worldwide. We should not be belittling our intellectuals and putting them aside. Because maybe some of you, like if you had some sort of a studying in politics, maybe you read John Locke. So you read John Locke. I read John Locke, and like his writings are good, but like it's not something abnormal. But what made John Locke is the idea that his tradition, his uh, teachings, his books were carried out by the uh, the English philosophers and the European philosophers who came after that. So these philosophers, Muslim intellectuals, really deserve that we treat them the same way, even if we criticize them, even if we have a lot of disagreement with them, but they deserve that. Inshallah, during the next weeks, we are going to deal with that, with these ideas, bi'awnillahi ta'ala. I hope that what I said was clear, and we discussed with Burhandin that this is going to be like an hour. So that hour, out of that hour, we are going to have like 45% of me talking but I talk too much. So pardon me. The last part of it is going to be questions and discussions. So I would like to open the floor for anyone who wants to have a comment or have a question. So please. Any questions or any comments, criticism? I don't really mind.
Assalamu alaikum, Ustaz.
Wa
I
alaikum
actually
salam.
have some point if you please permit me.
Yes.
I actually have some point. Firstly, thank you so very much. You gave us a subjective overview over the political philosophy. Ustaz, uh, my points are marginally related with today's class that maybe you will discuss is later on the class. But
Mm.
there is that in our universities under the British Academy, they taught us that you know John Stuart Mill or maybe Immanuel Kant both made significant contributions to the ethical foundation of maybe liberal democracy. So how can we face the view of John Stuart Mill or Immanuel Kant on the on the ethical uh, foundations of liberal democracy? Number one, and number two is uh, what are the main criticism or what can be the main criticism of classical liberalism and how have the shaped modern political discourse? Thank you, sis.
Yeah. Mm, مسافر رحمن sorry,
Says
your name is
Mushfiqur Rahman.
مشفق الرحمن, ما شاء Allah, great name. So your two questions are very broad. Yeah, I would say that we are going to get into those, but because the criticism on liberal democracy is now a very hot topic, even in the West, especially with the populist trend that are happening. But we can't get into those before going into the deep history of what uh, liberal democracy is. And if we go into that, we will need a whole course on liberal democracy before going into its criticism. But I would say that liberal democracy is facing problems now because it has a problem with defining itself. Liberal democracy is trying to include everyone. Liberal democracy is trying to achieve some sort of a coherence inside the community, but because they are the liberal democrats are trying to involve everyone, they are involving people who are against democracy and liberalism itself. So the problem they are facing is they're trying to redefine liberalism and democratic liberalism, liberalist democrat tradition in a way that would not include uh, that aspect. That is why they, after roles, especially the idea of public reason, if you heard about it, is the common rule in democratic liberal democrats the Democrats use, and now there's many upgrades on the idea of public reason, especially what they call the Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad, the duty to abstain, and the civic friendship, and like these concepts that are trying to redefine what liberal democracy exactly is. So I would say that this question is very vast, and I wouldn't give it its due if I answered it in 2 words. But I can, if you have, I can lead you to certain I can lead you into certain criticism, certain or like books and articles that did that. Regarding Kant, and I would say, look, you can read a lot about criticism on Kant or on Locke, but I would say that part of the problem is that until now we are revolving around them. So our production of intellectual sphere is revolving around criticism, criticism of modernity, criticism of uh, communism, of liberalism, we should start producing our own sphere of ideas, regardless of the what the West is doing. So, and that is how the West became the West. So the West is not, as much as I've seen, is not really intrigued by just following what the Muslims or the South Asians or the Japanese or the Latin Americans are doing. They're just doing their own thing. And that is why they are producing something, and we are following them and doing our criticism. So this is not a healthy way of delving into in the intellectual sphere. Try, of course, read the criticism, read whatever you want, but don't put that as the cornerstone of your intellectual production. Try to get into producing your ideas regardless of what's happening, especially when you become, yeah, I guess you're studying politics or philosophy. So if you want to become a philosopher or become a political theorist, you need to start to do your own thing. And don't really care. Read, but don't put them as the core of your intellectual life. Okay?
Thank you.
Any other question? Ahmed? Ahmed Ghalib.
Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I have a question that how European students uh, learn the history, like you, we will try to learn with worldview. Then they think that they are at peak today in civilization. Then why they conflict to consider others political philosophies with uh, akhlaq by any chance? It's because it's a matter of civilization, right? Then uh, it when they read when they read or consider every philosophies with akhlaq, their civilization may go through with those people. So why don't or why
Ahmed,
they conflict over
I
it?
didn't quite hear what you saying. The voice was going and coming. I don't know exactly if you can summarize the question and put it on chat so I can read it because the sound is coming and going and I can't understand quietly what you're
Okay,
saying. I'm
okay,
really
okay,
sorry
okay,
for that.
okay, sir.
But okay. Hisham,
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Ustaz, how are you?
alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, bikhair. Uh, it is great to see you again after a long time. Especially, I could not forget the lesson I took on the history of Islam last time from you. I have an overall question that our region has a had a strong political power almost 2000 years ago. Uh, that political philosophy has not been continued in the post-colonial period. My question is, if we want to establish our own political thoughts now, should we go back to the political philosophy of the Hindustani Mughal Sultanate, or can we follow universal political thought trend ongoing on this world? My second question is, how can we reclaim our lost political philosophy bypassing the influence of British academy? Thank you.
Great two questions. So, should we go back or should we adhere to the universal? I say that there's no contradiction between the both. If you want to produce your own political philosophy, you would have to get elements from the past and you have to get elements from the contemporary world. So if you want, you have to go to the past. If you didn't go to the past, it will not be as influential as it should be because it's not going to be yours. So Taha Abdul Rahman, which I guess that most of you know by now, has a great definition of what modernity is, which is like practically modernity is for each ummah to have its own answers for the questions of its era, built upon its own pragmatics or majal tadawi. What does that mean? That means that you should, of course, go to the past and get the elements for which you see benefits. But nevertheless, when you come to the contemporary world, you don't isolate it and say that it is just ours and nothing gets in, nothing gets out, because we're not living in a bubble. We live in a dynamic world. So you can take from the West, you can take from the East, you can take from the South, but nevertheless, you are going to have your own taste, of course. And by the way, this is a thing that I will benefit from you during this course, because as much as I tried, my knowledge when it comes to I would say, the Indian subcontinent, when it got, especially uh, like what we know at the Indus Valley, when it comes to the writings and philosophy of the political at that time, I don't have that much knowledge of what has been written. So I will need your assistance when it comes to that. The second question, how do we, I think it was how to regain uh, our political philosophy and to influence the
How we
British.
reclaim our lost political identity bypassing
Yeah,
so British Academy.
yeah. So it's the I would say that I believe that this will take lots of research, but I would say that the factor of amazement is very important. The factor of cultural shock. Some of the people who come here to Oxford or to like they'll go to the US, to Harvard, and they go to the West, they have this element of fascination of the West. So they feel that they belittle themselves, and they feel that they are very small. They are nothing in comparison with the West or the tradition, the scientific traditions here. So what happens is they dissolve completely. So you will need maybe to go to the West. You will need to read about the West. You will need to learn from the West. But nevertheless, you would not, if you want to reclaim your identity as a Jordanian, as an Arab, as someone who's from Bangladesh, or as someone from the Indian subcontinent, whatever you want, as a Muslim. If you want to reclaim that, you should turn yourself from a spectator to an actor. So a spectator, that Ata Rahman spoke on this issue on al-Shahida or al-Mashhuda. So when you are just a spectator in the academic arena, you're just listening from other people. What are they saying? They're saying this, let's follow that. They're criticizing this, let's criticize that. They are doing this and that, let's talk about that. Setting the agenda of what the intellectual world is happening is very important. So if you want to if you want to have a real identifiable identity, at the same time you to be a part of the intellectual grounds, so you will have to learn, but you will have to get out the element of fascination of the West. I went to different lectures here. Of course, there's a very lively academic life research lessons. But as we do have idiots, they do have idiots. As we have people who are empty, they do have people who are empty. But the difference is, because of the system, the idiots who speak here are more important than the idiots who speak in our countries. So uh, just forget about fascination, learn everything, become very strong in your field, and become an actor and not a spectator. That's what I would say. The last thing I said, Saad,
He is
Saad,
Saad Musanna.
Saad Muthanna.
Yeah.
MashaAllah. Yes, Saad Muthanna, please. Saad, no sound yet, yeah, Saad.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me now?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hi, you're sitting together. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay.
I said the name changed, but okay.
Because my question is, what is the most significant difference between the political philosophy of West and the political philosophy of Islam? Or is it possible to quantify the difference of this in one word.
Again, between the significant, yeah, between what and what?
Is it possible to quantify the difference in one word?
In between who and who? I didn't listen. I didn't hear the first part.
Because I repeat it, what is the most significant difference between the political philosophy of Islam and the political philosophy of
Ah,
West? Is it
yeah, I
possible
would say,
to,
yeah,
yes,
yeah. Like, there's a lot of differences because when you say, as we are going to reach to that later, when you say political philosophy of Islam is not one. We have multiple philosophies of politics in Islam. But I would answer with from the context, from the contemporary Muslim political thought. The contemporary Muslim political thought focuses on justice, while the Western political thought uh, focuses on either equality or liberty. So this is, I would say, this is a very short answer. This is a very superficial answer, but we will reach to that inshallah when we come to the Islamic political philosophies, not one.
inshallah?
Okay, so thank you. The last, do we have anyone else? Uh, I don't believe that we do. Okay,
Assalamu alaikum,
Ahmed
sir.
Ghalib, wa alaikum salam, Qazi.
Kaji Salma bin Kusulim.
Qazi is for like Qadi or
Yeah, Ustaz Kadi.
oh, mashallah. So in Bangladesh, you
No,
have the first
it's
woman
not
Qadi.
Qadi. It's not Qadi.
Oh,
It's who, who, how can I say, the bureaucrat who make the nikah. It's
no,
called Qazi.
no,
Ah,
it's
like
not.
al-Ma'dhun.
What?
The marriage maker, marriage maker, marriage maker.
Register,
Marriage register. Who registered the marriage record?
Okay, okay. Nevertheless, I'm sorry for the, but it's a very interesting name. Qazi Buyurun, please.
Ustaz, actually, I don't have any questions. I come to thank you on behalf of our sisters. Actually, we have been waiting for your class for a long time. Since the first class, our trust to know more from you has increased. We are very, very overwhelmed for your kind presence today, Ustaz. May Allah bless you in time and opportunity, and hope that you will give us time again and again on such important topics. Thank you, Ustaz.
Allah. Thank you very much. And again, I would say that I would not deserve such kind words from you, but I hope that I will be applied with the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's dua, who taught one of his Sahaba, اللهم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد اجعلني خيرا مما يظنون واغفر لي ما لا يعلمون إن شاء الله. شكر الله لكم جميعا. Thank you very much for your attendance. We will meet inshallah next week in the same time. Ustad Burhanuddin, we're going to meet in the same time. I'm going to put that into the calendar. And I'm really happy to be with you today. Very happy to be with you the next week. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.